In this episode of the TARDIS Coffee Break podcast, we'll be talking about some War Between the Land and the Sea news, some news from the most recent issue of Doctor Who magazine, as well as some other Doctor Who news. Okay, so before I get into the main topics of this episode, I first want to kind of point out the obvious for people who have been watching for a little while now. I am in a brand new space. I've got my own office now because I've just moved flats recently. I am still setting a few things up, but I don't think from this angle it's going to change a whole lot. I've just got like a load of boxes and bags and stuff down there at the moment because we've just been moving in. But this office is where pretty much every video I'm going to make from now on is going to be taking place. It's going to be filmed. There may be some other bits where, you know, if I'm making some longer videos, I want to change up some backgrounds a little bit and film somewhere else for some little sections. But for the most part, this is where my videos are going to be now, and especially for this podcast. So I just thought I'd get that out of the way for now. But in this episode, like I mentioned up top, we're going to be talking about quite a bit of news to do with the War Between the Land and the Sea, the brand new spin-off. There's going to be a lot of stuff on the newest issue of Doctor Who magazine, which is going to feed into quite a few of these different stories, including the War Between the Land and the Sea. And there's also a couple of other announcements, one of which I haven't talked about but has been announced for a little while now, but we've had some more info on it from the Doctor Who magazine, and another small announcement that's recently just been announced that's nothing too big, but I wanted to kind of pad the time a little bit and have something else to talk about. So starting with Doctor Who magazine, I was going to buy the new issue just for this podcast so that I could actually have it here and find the pages to talk about, but if you've seen the cover, I'm not a big fan of the cover and I don't think it looks very good, so I didn't think it was worth buying to kind of own because I didn't think it looked very nice. It's obviously a picture of Ncuti Gatwa with his 15th Doctor Madame Tussauds waxwork figure, but for some reason it just looks like it's been edited really weirdly, and they've even had to put an 100% official thing in the corner, I guess because of how not great the graphic design and the cover of this issue of the magazine looks, which if anything, that little bit in the corner kind of makes it seem even less official and even more sketchy, but you know, that they've just had to do that, I guess. So for that reason, I didn't end up actually buying this edition of the magazine, and so I don't know exactly what's been said about the waxwork and stuff like that in that particular section, but that's kind of what a lot of this is about. But obviously there's a lot more information about other things that I'm going to be talking about in this particular episode, starting with a section written by Julie Gardner. I believe this is kind of like it's either the production diary or it's also maybe a bit like Russell T Davies' letter from the showrunner kind of segment, but it's Julie Gardner this time. And so she starts off by saying, 7:30 p.m, Russell and I have a dinner with the BBC, Nick Lambin, commissioning editor, and Leslie Bailey. But hush, spoilers. So it seems like this is potentially them trying to commission probably a new spin-off, because I don't think they'd be keeping spoilers if this was just about Doctor Who Season 3. So I'm assuming this is going to be about a new spin-off, maybe a full-on spin-off like what we used to have where it was multiple series, or even just another mini-series like The War Between the Land and the Sea. It's probably more likely the latter. I'm assuming they're going to be going for this mini-series approach for future, but maybe we'll get a new version of like Torchwood or Sarah's Young Adventures or something like that, where it's an episodic show alongside Doctor Who that is running for multiple seasons. So who knows, but I'm assuming that's what this is for. She also, talking about the SDCC panel, says, I slip out to join the audience. The joy in that room, the expectation, as the theme music kicks in and Russell, Millie and Ncuti are roared to the stage. It's impossible not to feel the magic of this wonderful show. British, eccentric, full of heart and courage, 60 years old. So that's just a nice little write-up of her perspective from the SDCC panel. It seems like she was there and she went and sat in the audience during the panel, which is nice. And she goes on to say, it snows for Ruby. Nicola Coughlan joins in a pre-recorded video and we announce our first spin-off series, The War Between the Land and the Sea, starring Russell Tovey and Gugu Mbatha Raw. It's a blur and we are back in the green room. Disney, our global partners, are happy. Charlie Andrews, our lead executive, is buzzing. It's a moment. So this is the main quote that I really want to talk about in this episode, because obviously a lot of people have been worrying about whether Disney's involvement is going to continue, whether Disney are happy with the show after season 1 and stuff like that. There's a lot of kind of conspiracy theories going out there at the moment about how Disney don't want to continue and they're going to drop it after season 2 or something like that, because they haven't officially announced season 3 at like SDCC or D23 or anything like that. But for me, I'm really not that worried. Obviously, like this quote says, Disney are happy. They could just be talking about the panel itself in this moment, that's what they're happy with, but there's been a lot of people worrying that because we've had no announcement for season 3, it means that Disney are going to drop it after the second season. But the reason I think people are kind of wrong in this assumption, and it could very well happen, I think the main reason it hasn't been officially announced is because Disney have ordered a 2-season deal with Doctor Who, so they're very unlikely to commission a season 3 after season 1 has aired unless it's done like incredibly well. They're not as likely to kind of jump the gun on that and commission a season 3 after the first season when they've ordered 2 seasons. I think the idea is they're going to wait until season 2 has aired and see how well that does and how happy they are with that before they announce anything to do with season 3. And I still don't think we need to really worry even if they do decide to drop out after that, because season 3 is still going to happen. I don't think there's any doubt about that. If Disney, for some reason, which I think is very unlikely, choose to not go ahead with Doctor Who season 3 and they just stick to the 2 seasons, I really don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. It just means we're gonna go back to just the BBC, maybe some smaller budget stuff, which I've not got a problem with, but I personally don't think there's anything to worry about. Like I said, they've ordered a 2-season deal. They're probably waiting to see how well season 2 does first before they announce anything to do with season 3. But if this quote has anything to do with it, if this is not just about the panel itself but about the show itself, that Disney are happy with it, then I think that's a good indication of them coming back for season 3, them continuing the deal for season 3. But let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Okay, so now we get on to some of the news about the new spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea. Once again, a lot of this comes from the newest issue of Doctor Who magazine as well, particularly this first quote that I'm going to read out, which is, I believe, from the same section that we were just reading from with Julie Gardner's kind of production diary or production calendar type section, where she says, production commences in August with location work taking place, appropriately enough, overseas. The series will broadcast next year on BBC One and Disney Plus where available internationally. So this is the first official confirmation we've had of the release date or the kind of release window of The War Between the Land and the Sea, the brand new spin-off. And all it says is that it'll be next year. Now, because they've only just started production, and I don't even know if filming's technically started yet, which we'll discuss when I talk about the next part of this section, I'm assuming it's going to be late in the year, which also makes sense because we know season 2 of Doctor Who is going to be early next year. I'm pretty sure we know from like the Disney leak or Disney hack, whatever it was, that it's actually going to be season 2 is actually going to be even earlier than season 1 was in the year. I believe it's going to be March or April this time instead of May and June, but I could be wrong on that. So to me, this suggests this is going to be kind of later on in the year, kind of filling the gap between Doctor Who season 2 and the Christmas special, which I think I'd previously speculated is kind of when I expected the show to air anyway, but it's nice to have confirmation about this. And it also once again confirms that it's going to be not only on BBC One, but also Disney Plus. So this spin-off is part of the Disney deal. It's not just going to be an exclusive to the UK situation like it was with Tales of the TARDIS and stuff like that. It's going to be on Disney Plus as well, which is great to see, and once again kind of adds to what I was just talking about, with us probably not needing to be worried about whether or not Disney are going to continue with their deal with Doctor Who, because they wouldn't commission a spin-off, which must have only recently happened because it's not started filming yet, if they're not happy with how the show is doing, which to me suggests it's, a lot more likely we're going to get season 3. You'd think they'd be more willing to commission Doctor Who season 3 than they would a spin-off if they're not happy with the show or it's not doing as well as they think. So this brings us on to the next bit of news we've just got today, as of recording anyway, about The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is this Instagram post that Russell T Davies has made. Obviously, as you can see with when I'm recording this was only 14 hours ago, and this is for the initial read-through of all of the episodes of The War Between the Land and the Sea. So the caption says, Day 1, the war begins. Read-through day for all 5 episodes of The War Between the Land and the Sea. So much excitement. What a cast. Thrills, deaths, chasers, fish, and 7 seas of danger. Can't wait. And he's tagged BBC Doctor Who, Disney Doctor Who, and BBC iPlayer. So this shows that production is beginning. I had thought that filming was meant to be starting very soon, but it's definitely going to be starting this month, but we've only just got to the read-through. I'm assuming this is happening on the day that he posted it, unless he's just saved it for a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. But as we can see from this picture at the read-through, you can see some cast members blurry in the background opposite Russell T Davies with his script in front of him. It seems to be abbreviated to TWB, I think, on his script. So I'm assuming that's what, I've already been abbreviating it to The War Between in my kind of notes and my folders and stuff like that when I've been organizing pictures and videos and stuff like that for it. So I'm assuming a lot of people are just going to keep referring to this as The War Between and probably abbreviating it to TWB because it's a bit of a mouthful. I've seen some people saying they should have just named it Unit or something like that, which could make sense. I thought it'd be cool to have it be Unit, the war between the land and the sea, and then if there's a future Unit spin-off or a future Unit miniseries, in the future, then it can have a different subtitle. But that's assuming that this is very Unit heavy, which I think we can heavily assume it is, especially with this picture now. They're very clearly in front of the Unit kind of helipad kind of area there in the Unit base, the new Unit HQ. And obviously we know Kate Stewart and Colonel Ibrahim are going to be in this and they're part of Unit. And we can assume that Russell Tovey and Gugu Mbatha-Raw are going to be playing Unit agents or Unit soldiers, something like that. But we don't know that for sure. So this might not be as Unit heavy as people think for it to be called Unit, the war between the land and the sea. But it probably is. Obviously, there's also been speculation they could be playing Sea Devils, the new cast members. But I think it's more likely they are working for Unit. But speaking of the cast members for this brand new spin-off, like I said, we do get to see them quite blurry in the background. I've seen some people speculating and thinking that the person in the middle, right opposite Russell T Davies, is either Mandip Gill or maybe Freema Rajaman or something like that. To me, it's very clearly Gugu Mbatha-Raw because obviously we know she's cast in the show now, and she sat right next to what I assume is Russell Tovey and Gemma Redgrave as Kate Stewart. So if she's going to be like basically our main cast member alongside Russell Tovey, obviously she's going to be front and center there. So no, I don't think that's Mandip Gill or Freema Rajaman or anything like that. That is definitely Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And I think I know who pretty much all of these cast members are. I'm going to go from left to right here and discuss who I think each one of them is. The only ones I'm not sure about are these first two. I do think it's possible it could be Yasmin Finney and Ncuti Gatwa, but I highly doubt the Doctor's actually going to be in there. It might just be because he's wearing that white t-shirt and it looks very much like the 50th Doctor during The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, but it's definitely giving Ncuti Gatwa vibes, but I personally don't think it will be him, and I'm also not certain that first person there is Yasmin Finney, but those first two are the only ones I'm not certain about. The third person from the left is definitely Russell Tovey. If you've seen pictures of him recently, you know that's what he looks like. He's got kind of the buzz cut sort of greyish hair at the moment, and obviously, like I said, he's one of the main cast members, so he's going to be front and center like this. Then, like I said, the next person is definitely Gugu Mbatha-Raw, one of the other main cast members of this spin-off. And then we've obviously got Gemma Redgrave as Kate Stewart, Alexander Devrient as Colonel Ibrahim, and another nice surprise next to him is, I believe, Ruth Madley as Shirley Ann Bingham, which is nice to see her return. I think it was kind of expected because she's obviously meant to be one of the main Unit cast members at the moment. Obviously, she wasn't in the season 1 finale, which was a shame, but we do know that that's because she was busy filming something else, and so Morris just kind of took her place in that episode, in that story. So it's nice to know that she is definitely coming back. And then I believe the final person on the very right is, I believe his name is Colin McFarlane. It could be somebody else, but to me that looks just like Colin McFarlane, who has been in Doctor Who before. Assumedly he's playing a different character here because he was in Under the Lake Before the Flood, and I've definitely seen him in some other things as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's just got a face that I recognise, that I've seen him in some things before and can't quite place what they are. And I believe that is who that is. If you have any other ideas who that could be, and if you think I'm wrong there, let me know. And if you have any ideas of who those first two cast members could be, please let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so now we're getting on to some more news about the Christmas special this year, Joy to the World. It's now been officially confirmed, I believe in Doctor Who magazine as well, that the Silurian we see in the preview of Joy to the World is in fact Jonathan Arris, who has previously played Anderson in Sherlock, and obviously he's probably been in many other things as well. But I had speculated, or had pointed out that other people had speculated, that that is who this actor is before in a previous episode of the podcast, and now we have official confirmation that it is definitely Jonathan Arris, and he is playing Melmac. Now, once again, I'm still not sure if this Silurian character is going to be a big part of this special, or if it's just a one-off kind of joke. But, you know, if they've got Jonathan Arris in there, and the Silurian has a name, I'm assuming they're going to appear more than just this one time in the episode, but I wonder how big of a part the Silurians are going to play in this episode. So if you have any thoughts on that, let me know in the comments down below. Obviously, with everything else to do with Joy to the World, I have already discussed that in a previous episode of the podcast, so if you want to watch that, I will make sure to have it linked somewhere. But I am also planning on doing a much more in-depth breakdown of that preview we got at SDCC in the future. I've already done a kind of quick watch through and breakdown in a previous episode, but there's some things that I didn't point out in there and some things that I missed that I want to go back and kind of point out and do a proper breakdown of it in the future. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to get it early, also join the Patreon down below. Okay, so for the next bit of news, this is not something that was in Doctor Who magazine, or maybe it was mentioned in there, but it's also been officially announced on the actual Doctor Who page. We're getting 2 brand new 15th Doctor audio adventures with Ruby Sunday as well, Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. Now, these aren't Big Finish audio dramas, and I don't believe Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa are coming in to record their lines for it, as far as I know. I don't really know how these audio adventures work, but to me, what it looks like is they're basically just audio books, but you can only have them in audio form, pretty much, because we know they're going to be read by other actors that have appeared in the show before, and I believe they read the whole story in its entirety, so there's not going to be like Millie and Ncuti coming in just to do their lines or anything like that. But I could be wrong on that. Let me know in the comments down below if they are coming back to do their own kind of voice lines. So the article reads, 2 brand new adventures are coming for the 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday, this time on audio. Head into County Durham, England and Northwest America. These 2 new stories take the 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday even further. These audio-only adventures are due for release 7th November 2024. So this one here is the first one. It's called On Ghost Beach. It's written by Neil Bushnell. I'm not sure if I've heard that name anywhere before. Let me know if there's any other Doctor Who stuff that they've written in the past. And it's going to be read by Susan Twist, who obviously played Susan Triad in Doctor Who Season 1. So the synopsis of this story reads, the TARDIS arrives in County Durham, England in 1958. CM Chemical Beach was once a scene of heavy industry, long since abandoned, but now local residents are having nightmares and seeing apparitions. It isn't long before the Doctor and Ruby are affected by the beach's peculiar atmosphere. As they begin to forget exactly who they are, Ruby hears a distant voice calling her on. Whose memories are filling the travellers' heads? And what is the significance of Ghost Beach in the Sea of Despair on the planet far from? Even more importantly, who is Reg? And like I said, this is going to be read by Susan Twist and is written by Neil Bushnell. The next of these stories is called Sting of the Sasquatch, which I assume is going to be about the Sasquatch in America. And it's going to be written by Darren Jones. That's a name that I feel like I might have heard before. I'm not sure whether he's written some Big Finish or previous Doctor Who books in the past, but that definitely sounds like a name that I've heard before. Let me know about that in the comments down below. And this story is going to be read by Genesis Linnea, who I believe played Harriet Arbinger in the Season 1 finale. So the synopsis for this story goes, in a national park in Northwest America, the Doctor and Ruby are pursued by large ape-like creatures who seem to literally disappear into the trees. When Ruby falls ill after apparently being stung, the Doctor believes the infection is extraterrestrial in origin. They meet Dixie and Greg, 2 Bigfoot hunters determined to track down the mythical Sasquatch. Standing in their way is Ranger Peony, who's adamant that the forest is too dangerous to explore. Dozens of people have vanished or reappeared with no memory in the last month alone. Then the ape creatures kidnap Ruby, and the Doctor is determined to both save her life and solve the mystery of the Sasquatch. So this one's very interesting. I don't know if they've previously done a Doctor Who Sasquatch story or Bigfoot story in the past. You'd think they would have done it before, so it'll be crazy if this is the first one they've done, but it's definitely entirely possible. So let me know if you know in the comments down below if they've previously done a Bigfoot or Sasquatch story in the past, because if not, this story will be very interesting. Now, I'm unlikely to actually purchase these myself and listen to them. I've never really been into the audio books or anything like that, but if I hear these are any good, I'll maybe check them out and do some reviews on maybe the Patreon or something like that. So let me know if you'd be interested in that in the comments down below, and let me know if you're excited for these releases. Okay, so the final bit of news I want to talk about isn't something that new. It was actually first announced on the 12th of July 2024, but I previously haven't spoken about it on this channel or on this podcast, and we've had some new information about it in Doctor Who magazine this week, or I guess last week it would have been. So I thought I'd talk about it in this episode as we're discussing the new issue of Doctor Who magazine. And that's that Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill are returning for Big Finish audio dramas, which I think we knew was going to be coming at some point, but I don't know about everybody else, but this definitely felt earlier than I had thought, especially because I don't believe we've got the Fugitive Doctor box sets yet, and maybe the Sacha Dhawan Master box sets. I'm not sure if they've been released yet, and they were announced quite a while ago, but just because this has been announced, I don't know if we know exactly when these are coming yet, and Big Finish do record things quite early in advance, so, and I've not really given this article a full read yet, so I'm going to do that in this episode now. So the article goes, the Doctor and Yaz are off to see more of the universe in a new series of audio dramas from Big Finish. Big Finish Productions, in partnership with BBC Studios, today announced a full series of 13th Doctor audio dramas as Jodie Whittaker returns to the Whoniverse alongside Mandip Gill as Yasmin Khan. First seen on screen in 2017, Jodie Whittaker made TV history as the first female incarnation of the beloved Time Lord in Doctor Who. Now she's back in a brand new series of 12-hour-long full-cast audio adventures in time and space, due to be released from July 2025. Okay, so we do know when these are being released now. It's in July 2025, so basically a whole year away, at least in terms of when this article was written. By her side in the TARDIS, as ever, will be her best friend, Yaz, once again played by Mandip Gill. Jodie Whittaker said, "I'm over the moon to be joining Big Finish for more adventures in the TARDIS. Recording the 13th Doctor and Yaz is a really lovely thing to revisit. One of the things Mandip and I used to love on Doctor Who was getting in, doing a new episode, and meeting a brand new cast. I just can't wait to step back into the boots, pull on the coat, and get cracking. One thing's for sure, it's going to be brilliant." Mandip Gill added, "Doctor Who has been a huge part of my career and personal life, and I'm looking forward to seeing how I can further enrich my character through this exhilarating series. To be able to work with Jodie again is a dream come true. We have such a special friendship. I'm sure the recordings will be filled with laughter." Big Finish's chairman, Jason Haig-Ellery, said, "This year, Big Finish is celebrating its 25th anniversary of producing full-cast Doctor Who audio drama. So when we were granted the license to create new stories set during the 13th Doctor's era, we immediately set to work. I am delighted that the inimitable Jodie and Mandip have decided to return to their roles with us, and I'm excited to welcome them to Big Finish, alongside our two other forthcoming series, The Fugitive Doctor, played by Joe Martin, and The Master, played by Sacha Dhawan. 2025 has never looked brighter for the 13th Doctor and her fam." Okay, so I'm assuming that means that the previously mentioned Fugitive Doctor and Master sets are also coming in 2025, which makes sense considering it's all the same sort of era. Big Finish's creative director, Nicholas Briggs, added, "Jodie and Mandip were so welcoming to me when I worked on set with them in the TV show, so I'm looking forward to repaying the compliment. They're lovely people and they're full of enthusiasm for this project." So that was the full announcement that we got over a month ago for the 13th Doctor and Yaz returning for Big Finish. But like I said, we've had some more news on this now in the newest issue of Doctor Who magazine, with quotes from both Mandip Gill and Jodie Whittaker. So the first quote from Mandip Gill says, "Yaz is a big part of the first one we did. It's her storyline. The Doctor coming and interrupting her big weekend with her friends. With Jodie saying, in our season 1 and 2, the Doctor would have the majority to say. What's great in this instance is that Mandip has loads to do and it's so fun. It's great to hear Yaz's character in its entirety." So these new quotes basically suggest that Yaz is actually going to have a lot to do in these Big Finish audio dramas, which is really nice to see because the companions do get significantly sidelined in a lot of the Chibnall era of Doctor Who, particularly when there was the whole fam in the first 2 seasons. I mean, Yaz gets a lot more to do in Flux and in the specials and stuff like that, but even then, there's also Dan involved as well. So it's nice that these audio dramas are mostly just going to be, as far as we can tell, the 13th Doctor and Yaz, because there's going to be a lot more of a focus on them there. And I think it's going to be a lot easier to write when there's not the whole fam and stuff like that getting in the way. So hopefully no one's really going to get sidelined in these. And for me personally as well, I'm not too big into Big Finish, but this particular run of like the 13th Doctor's era and stuff like that come into Big Finish is something I have been excited for a little bit and interested to try out, because I wasn't the biggest fan of the Chibnall era. Not to say there's not episodes in there that I didn't love, because there absolutely is, but I've been interested to see how the 13th Doctor will be when she's written by other people and stuff like that in Big Finish. So I'd be very interested to see what this is like. Okay, and that's pretty much all the news I wanted to talk about in this episode of the TARDIS Coffee Break podcast. But before I end, I just kind of want to give some more hints of kind of what I'm going to be doing in the future for some future videos. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be doing a more in-depth breakdown of that Joy to the World preview we got at San Diego Comic-Con, but also in anticipation for the War Between the Land and the Sea and the return of the Sea Devils. I am also going to be doing a video where I'm discussing every Sea Devil story we've had so far. I'm going to be reviewing them. I'm probably going to be ranking them and just giving my overall general thoughts on all of those stories and what I thought about them. I'm not entirely sure when I'll have it ready yet. I've not finished watching all the stories and making notes on all the stories yet, so it'll be at least a couple weeks until that comes out. But I have already filmed the intro and posted that as a little preview on Patreon. But I am also going to show that now here, just for anybody that's made it this far into the episode, as a little preview of what's to come for that video. With the Sea Devils returning for the brand new Whoniverse spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea, let's take a look at every Sea Devil story we've had so far. Okay, so as mentioned in the intro to this video, we are getting a brand new spin-off for the Whoniverse with the war between the land and the sea, which after being speculated at for a while now has officially been announced at San Diego Comic-Con 2024 on the Doctor Who panel. The Sea Devils were hinted at in the official press release announcing that spin-off, but they were also officially confirmed to be in the show by Russell T Davies at the panel itself. And we've recently had confirmation in Doctor Who magazine that the show will be coming in 2025, presumably late in that year, as it's only just beginning filming, and assumedly Doctor Who Season 2 will be coming out early in the year. So because the Sea Devils are going to be returning in the spin-off, what we're going to be covering in this video will be the first Sea Devil story, literally just titled The Sea Devils from 1972, because obviously this is the first story they appear in. We'll then be covering Warriors of the Deep from 1984, which is the only other actual Sea Devil story in Classic Who besides mentions and cameos and flashbacks and some other stories. And then we'll be moving on to New Who with The Legend of the Sea Devils, which is the return of the Sea Devils in the revived era and the only Sea Devil story in the revival so far. But before we get into those stories, what are the Sea Devils? So, introduced in the Sea Devils in 1972, the Sea Devils are cousins of the Silurians, who we'll be talking about later in this video when we get to Warriors of the Deep. And just like their cousins, the Silurians, the Sea Devils lived on Earth before the humans in prehistoric times and live in a scientifically advanced civilization. So, with all that being said, let's get on to the first story, the Sea Devils. Okay, so that's the preview of my Sea Devils video that should be hopefully coming out in the next couple of weeks or so. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to catch that early, as well as all my individual unedited reviews for each of those stories that will be discussed in that video, feel free to join the Patreon below alongside the Beast Boss and some other free members that are on there. And with that being said, I think that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching.